Why he chose her but connects with you, Carl Jung. Have you ever felt that inexplicable connection with someone who is in another relationship? That look that lasts 2 seconds longer, conversations that flow as if you've known each other for years, laughter that seems to have a secret meaning of just the two of you. And then comes that question that doesn't want to be silenced. If the chemistry between us is so strong, why did he choose to be with her? This situation is more common than you might think, and the answer goes far beyond the obvious. It's not about who's prettier, smarter, or more interesting. The truth is, his choice reveals something profound about how men really work in relationships, and about what he may not even be able to admit to himself. What you're going to discover today can completely change the way you view your own connections. Get ready, because the answer is not what you expect. 1. Comfort conquers passion. You know that feeling of coming home after a tiring day and just wanting to relax on the couch? This is exactly how it works for many men when they are in a relationship. They don't necessarily choose the woman who makes the heart race or who brings all that adrenaline. Often, the choice falls on the one that represents tranquility, predictability, and the absence of internal conflicts. When a man is with someone who doesn't challenge him emotionally, who doesn't mess with his deeper layers, he can just relax. You don't need to question yourself. You don't need to look inside yourself. You don't need to grow or transform. It's like wearing an old, comfortable outfit every day instead of that new outfit that still needs to be broken in. The truth is that feeling something very intense requires energy. It requires the person to be willing to leave the known zone and dive into waters that he does not completely control. And many people prefer to avoid this, not because you're a coward, but because you're just not ready to deal with the intensity that a true connection brings. Meanwhile, you represent something entirely different. In conversations with you, he needs to be really present. You need to think, feel, open up in a way that you may not do with anyone else. That's powerful, but it's also scary. Because when someone touches us so deeply, we lose some of that control that gives us so much security. So he stays with those who don't take him out of his comfort zone, even though he knows that there is something bigger waiting on the other side. It's like choosing to watch the same movie every week instead of risking seeing something new that can really move you. The choice has nothing to do with value or worthiness. It has to do with the emotional moment he is in and how much he is willing to feel. 2. The chemistry that scares. There's something powerful going on when two people connect in a way that goes beyond logic. You feel it on your skin, in that butterflies in your stomach, in that smile that appears without you even realizing it. But here's the detail that few people understand. This kind of intense chemistry may be exactly why he retreats. When the attraction is too strong, when the conversations flow too much, when it seems that you understand each other without having to explain much, it lights up a red alert in the minds of many people. Because feeling something so big means that it has power over you. And having something with so much power over us is uncomfortable, especially for those who like to keep the reins of their own life. Think about it. If he felt only a superficial attraction, it would be easy to manage. But when it's something that really moves him, that makes him think of you unintentionally, that creates that need to seek your presence, it becomes a threat to the balance he has built. Suddenly, he is no longer in full control of his own emotions. Many men were raised believing that they need to be rational, controlled, owners of situations. When someone appears who awakens something uncontrollable in them, the automatic reaction can be to move away, not because they don't like the person, but precisely because they like it too much. It is a form of self-preservation, of not allowing something or someone to have so much weight in their lives. And therein lies the great irony. The same chemistry that could create something incredible is seen as dangerous. In the meantime, he chooses to stay in a place where he doesn't feel as much, where he can keep a cool head and his heart protected. It's not about you not being enough. It's about you being too intense for someone who hasn't yet learned to deal with their own depth. If he chose her in reality, but keeps finding you in his thoughts, there's something deeper your soul is trying to understand. Find the answer inside the Jung Method. Link pinned below. 3. The fear of what is real. There is a huge difference between a relationship that works on the surface and a connection that touches on what is true. When two people really connect, you can't pretend, you can't wear masks, you can't hide the parts that we don't like so much about ourselves. And this scares much more than it seems. With you, he may be forced to be authentic. In the conversations, in the silences, in the way you interact, there is a silent demand for truth. You see beyond appearances. You notice when he's just pretending to be fine. You notice the contradictions between what he says and what he really feels. All this transparency is liberating, but it also exposes. In the relationship he chose, there may be a tacit agreement not to go too deep. A relationship where both can keep their defenses up, where they don't need to show themselves completely, where defects and insecurities are well kept under the rug. It's safer that way. Less true, but definitely safer. The problem is that many people confuse physical intimacy with emotional intimacy. You can share a house, a bed, an entire routine with someone, and still maintain a giant emotional distance. You can live for years with a person without ever really opening up. And for those who are afraid of being seen, this is perfect. When he looks at you, he sees someone who won't accept this superficial version of him. He sees someone who will want to know the deepest layers, the doubts, the fears, the dreams that he himself does not know if he has the courage to pursue. And that requires a courage that he may not have developed yet. So he chooses the path where he can continue hiding, even if it means giving up something real. 4. She is the safe haven. You are the open sea. Imagine two completely different landscapes. On one side, a quiet, protected bay where the boats are anchored and nothing much changes. On the other, the open ocean, full of possibilities, deep, sometimes unpredictable, but absolutely alive. This is exactly the difference between what it represents and what you represent in his life. She's that familiar place where he knows exactly what to expect. The routine is established, the roles are defined, there are no big surprises or intense emotional challenges. It's like living in a small town where you know every corner, every street, every path with your eyes closed. Comfortable, safe, family-friendly. You, on the other hand, are the unknown that fascinates. It is the possibility of discovery, of growth, of feeling things that he did not even know could exist. But the ocean can also be frightening for those who have always lived in the protected zone. The waves are unpredictable, the depth is unknown, and navigating these waters requires skills that he may not be sure he possesses. Many men spend their entire lives seeking stability. That's what they were taught to value, building something solid, predictable, controllable. The idea of throwing yourself into something that can completely transform their lives goes against everything they have learned. Even if, deep down, they know that it is in the open sea that the real adventures happen. The question is not which of the two is better or worse. The point is that each one meets a different need, and he chose the need for security over the need for expansion. He chose the known instead of the transformer. And while some of it may miss the intensity you bring, another part clings to the comfort of not having to row against its own internal currents. 5. The connection he doesn't know how to name. There are things in life that we feel, but can't put into words. That shiver when you listen to a certain song. That strange feeling of having already lived a moment that is happening for the first time. That deep recognition when looking at someone. And when we can't name what we feel, we are at a loss about how to deal with it. It is likely that the connection between you is exactly of this type. He feels something, but he doesn't know how to categorize it. It's not just physical attraction. It's not just intellectual admiration. It's not just affinity. It's a mixture of all this seasoned with something else. Something that stirs up places he didn't even know existed inside him. And when you don't understand what you're feeling, the tendency is to avoid rather than investigate. Most people learn to deal with simple, direct feelings. Like it or dislike it. Whether you want it or not. Stay or leave. But when something complex comes up, which doesn't fit into any known category, the brain simply doesn't know how to process it. It's like trying to describe a new color to someone who only knows black and white. Meanwhile, the relationship he has is easy to explain. It works within the standards that everyone understands. There is affection, companionship, maybe even love in the traditional way. It is something that he can present to family, to friends, to the world, and everyone will understand and approve. You don't need to explain yourself, you don't need to question, you don't need to dive into unknown emotional waters. With you, it would be necessary to create a new language to describe what happens. It would be necessary to invent words, create concepts, except that not everything in life fits in ready-made boxes. And this requires an emotional maturity that many people simply do not have. So he chooses what he can explain, even if it means letting go of what really touches his soul in a way that has never been touched before. 6. The timing that defines everything. Life has a very particular way of putting the right people at the wrong times. You can meet someone amazing when you're completely focused on their career and don't have the emotional space for anything. You can feel a deep connection just when you're coming out of a difficult relationship and don't trust anything anymore. You may find the person who makes total sense to you at a time when you yourself don't make sense to you. Maybe he met you at a time in his life when he already had other decisions made, other commitments made, another path traced. And changing routes in the middle of the journey, as much as it makes sense, requires a courage that not everyone has. It requires admitting that perhaps the previous choices were not the best. It requires disappointing people. It requires starting from scratch in many aspects. There's also the question of where he was emotionally when you crossed paths. It could be that at that particular moment he was looking for the exact opposite of what you represent, looking for something light when you're deep, looking for something simple when you're complex, looking for something that doesn't make him think too much when you naturally make him question everything. The right time is not just about being available. It's about being prepared internally to receive and honor that connection. It's about having done the emotional work necessary to recognize value when it appears. It's about being at a point in life where you have the courage to choose what's true over what's convenient. Unfortunately, we can't control when people will be ready for us. We cannot accelerate anyone's process of emotional maturity. And sometimes, there is simply no synchronicity between his inner awakening and the moment in which you met. This does not diminish what exists between you. It just shows that connection alone is not always enough when the moment does not cooperate. 7. When you choose, it's easier than you feel it. There is a type of person who prefers to make a decision and stick to it, regardless of what comes along the way. It's almost as if, once the choice is made, she creates armor around that decision to protect her from any questioning. No matter what comes next, no matter what comes up, that initial choice needs to be maintained at all costs. For many people, going back on an important decision seems like weakness. It seems inconstancy. It seems that the person does not know what he wants or does not have firmness of character. So even when something comes up that makes a lot more sense, even when a connection comes along that clearly resonates on a deeper level, the tendency is to cling even tighter to the initial choice. It's simpler to ignore what you feel than to deal with the consequences of acknowledging that feeling. Because recognizing means having to take action. It means difficult conversations, changes of plans, disappointments, judgments. It means admitting to yourself and others that you may have made a mistake, or that you have simply evolved and now want different things. So he builds justifications. He convinces himself that he is happy where he is. It minimizes the importance of what it feels about you. It transforms your connection into something smaller than it really is, just so you don't have to face the complexity of the situation. It's a defense mechanism, a way to keep life on track without having to deal with the chaos that true change brings. Rigidity in old decisions is sometimes confused with loyalty or commitment, but there is a difference between consciously honoring a choice and simply being stuck with it for fear of change. Deep down, he knows there's something special between you. But choosing to maintain the status quo is infinitely simpler than choosing to dive into the unknown of what could be. 8. What this situation reveals about you. Now comes the part that is perhaps the most important of all, because so far we have talked a lot about him, about his choices, about his fears and limitations. But this situation is also showing you something fundamental about yourself, and that's what can completely transform the course of your life. First, you are able to create deep and true connections. This is no small feat. Many people go their entire lives without ever feeling the kind of chemistry and understanding that exists between you. The fact that you awaken this in someone shows that there is a depth in you that goes beyond the superficial. You're not the type to settle for shallow relationships or empty interactions. Second, you deserve someone who is at the same level of emotional readiness as you. If he cannot honor what exists between you, that says nothing about his worth. It tells about his current ability to recognize and welcome something true. You can't and shouldn't lower your intensity to fit into someone's comfort zone. Third, this situation is teaching you not to wait for crumbs. Being in the background in someone's life, being the secret connection they don't have the courage to take on, receiving only bits of attention while someone else has the full commitment. This is all below what you deserve, and recognizing this is the first step to not accepting less. Finally, the greatest gift of this experience is to understand that you don't have to become the safe haven to be chosen. You don't have to diminish your depth, hide your intensity, or pretend to be simple. What you need is to find someone who is ready to sail the open sea with you. Someone who sees its complexity not as a threat, but as a treasure. Someone who chooses the truth even when it scares them, because they understand that it is only in truth that we find something that is really worth living. 9. The illusion that he doesn't notice. There's one thing you need to understand. He knows exactly what's going on. It may not seem like it. It may seem like he's naive or that he just hasn't realized the intensity of what's between you, but the truth is that he feels all of this as much as you do. The difference is that he chose to ignore it, to push it under the rug, to pretend that it is not that important. Men are not emotionally dumb as society likes to paint. They feel, perceive, capture all the nuances of a connection. When he's with you and he feels that different shiver, when conversations flow in a way that doesn't flow with anyone else, when he catches himself thinking about you at the most random times of the day, he knows. He knows there's something there. But knowing and acting are two completely different things. He may internally recognize that you mess with him in a unique way, and still make the conscious decision not to do anything about it. Not out of malice, not because he wants to hurt you, but because acting would mean disrupting the life he has already built. It would mean facing difficult conversations, making complicated decisions, dealing with judgments. Often you wait for him to have a big revelation, a moment of clarity where he will finally understand what exists between you. But the revelation has already happened. He already understood. What is lacking is not awareness. It is courage. It is the willingness to choose what is true rather than what is comfortable. And this is something that no one can give to another person. It is a journey that each one needs to do alone. Realizing this changes everything. Because while you think he just doesn't see what you see, you get stuck in the hope that one day the penny will drop. Keep creating situations to show him how much you match, to prove that the connection is real. But you don't need to prove anything. He already knows. The question was never about evidence or about making him realize. The question has always been about him being willing to act on what he already perceives. And here's the most important point. When someone really wants to be with you, they don't need 1,000 signs or tests or perfect moments. When someone recognizes something special and is ready to honor it, the person simply takes action. It doesn't sit on the fence, it doesn't make elaborate excuses, it doesn't keep you in an emotional limbo while you go on with life with someone else. So stop trying to make him see. He can already see. What he doesn't have is the courage or the maturity to do something with what he sees. And that's not your problem to solve. Your role is not to convince anyone of your value or the importance of your connection. Your role is to understand that you deserve someone who doesn't need to be convinced, who doesn't need years of therapy to recognize a treasure when it appears in front of him. While he chooses security over truth, you can choose your own dignity. You can choose not to be emotionally available to someone who is not really available to you. You can choose to direct all of this incredible ability to connect to someone who is at the same level of readiness, because having a strong connection with someone who does nothing with it is wasting energy that could be building something real with those who are really prepared to receive you.